Today, I am going to discuss about hydrogeology. What is hydrogeology? What is hydro? Hydro means water. Geo means earth. What is a hydro? Meaning the study of water. Geology meaning the study of the earth, which means the area of geology that deals with the distribution and movement of groundwater in the soil and rocks of the earth's crust. How the water is distributed in the soil. Soil particularly we are going to find pore spaces. In rocks are also we are going to find voids. Voids means pore spaces, which means interstices. How this water get entered into the pore spaces of soils and rocks. Once this water entered into this rock system, rock body, how it occupies, how it will be distributed all along the rock body. Hydrogeology deals with the study of the occurrence of the water in the soils and the rocks of the earth's crust. The rock mass should contain always pore spaces. These pore spaces should be interconnected with each other. When the rock mass is going to show pore spaces, which means voids, definitely that can be able to store the water. When these interstices, which means pore spaces, are not interconnected, definitely that water cannot be extracted. This module 4, hydrogeology, deals with the distribution and movement of groundwater in the soil and rocks of the earth's crust. Hydrogeologists are a type of environmental geologists. They study how water interacts with the natural environment of rocks and soils. They study the relationship between water, rocks and soils as a natural process. There is a cycle which is called by the name water cycle or hydrologic cycle. What is this hydrologic cycle? The movement of water from the land to the ocean, from the ocean to the atmosphere, and from atmosphere to the land is called as hydrologic cycle. Today, let us discuss about hydrologic cycle. What is hydrologic cycle? We are going to use three main terminologies. One is evaporation, another one is condensation, the third one is precipitation. The movement of water from the oceans and seas and surface of the water bodies to the atmosphere, and from the atmosphere to the land is called as hydrologic cycle. Hydrologic cycle is also called as Earth's water cycle. Water at the surface of the lithosphere tends to move upwards into the atmosphere through the process of evaporation, particularly from the surfaces of ponds, lakes, reservoirs, oceans, etc. Basically, where exactly takes place evaporation? Evaporation is going to take place at the surface of ponds, lakes, reservoirs, oceans, seas and etc. What is evaporation? Evaporation is a process from which water changes from liquid state to vapor state, and it is diffused into the atmosphere. From the surfaces of the water bodies, which means the water is present in the form of liquid state. This water changes into the vapor state. That process is called by the name evaporation. And transpiration. What is transpiration? Transpiration is a process from which water changes from liquid state to vapor state again through plant metabolism. Here, evaporation from the surfaces of the water bodies. Here, from the surfaces of the leaves of a plant and trees, from the surfaces of vegetation. The water which is present in the soil, that will be extracted from the vegetation through their root system. During transpiration, the water which is present in these trees and plants, definitely that water will be changed from liquid state to vapor state through plant metabolism. These vapors rise to the atmosphere. Then that takes place condensation. The vapors which are changed from liquid state to the vapor state rise to the atmosphere, and here condensation takes place to form liquid water. When water molecules rejoin by hydrogen bonding. What is condensation? Condensation is a process by which the water molecules change from vapor state to liquid state. Here, as condensation intensifies, atmospheric water moves towards the earth's surface from here to here. When condensation intensifies, the atmospheric water tends to move towards the surface of the earth. As condensation intensifies, atmospheric water moves or tends to move towards the earth's surface in the form of precipitation. Precipitation is a process from which water falls to the ground from the atmosphere. It includes rain, snow, drizzle, frost, sleet, hail, dew, etc. What is drizzle? What is drizzle? We have heard many times drizzling. A fine uniform water drops. The diameter when we compared with precipitation, which means rain, which is lesser. When we compared with rain, rain means the drops of liquid water, which is always larger than drizzle. Drizzle means a fine uniform water drops. But here drops of liquid water which has larger than the drizzling. But when we come to the drizzling, the diameter lies between 0.1 to 0.5 millimeter. Here, the drizzling is always lighter than the rain. Snow, when water vapor condenses to ice, is called as snow. What is sleet? Frozen raindrops while falling through air at sub-freezing temperature. What is a hail? Small lumps of ice which is greater than 5 millimeter in diameter formed by alternate freezing and melting. What is dew? It is formed due to condensation of moisture directly on the surface of the objects, plants, animals, soils, etc. While precipitation is taking place, a part of it evaporates back to the atmosphere. Some more precipitation is intercepted by vegetation, buildings, and rest of it reaches the ground. The intercepted precipitation finally evaporates back into the atmosphere. When this water reaches to the ground, it has two alternatives. One is surface runoff. Another one is infiltration. When precipitated water hits the ground, it has two alternatives. One is surface runoff, another one is infiltration. What is surface runoff? When there is more water, if it is the ground, when it receives more water, particularly the precipitated water, when this land receives more water than land can absorb, the excess water flows across the surface of the land towards nearby, which means towards the water bodies like streams, creeks, ponds, rivers, whatever it finds. But when precipitation takes place, very lesser amount that will be received by the land itself. When storm precipitation takes place, when heavy precipitation takes place, that time only the water flows on the surface of the earth, which is called by the name surface runoff. What is infiltration? When precipitation takes place on that particular terrain, the water which receives by the land, definitely that takes place further vertical movement, which means a portion of the water that reaches the ground enters the earth's surface. Infiltration means the process by which water enters the ground through the soil surface and moves towards the groundwater table. The infiltrated water may be distributed in different ways. Firstly, it supplies moisture to the vegetation. the water which is infiltrated in the vertical movement of the soil, particularly the water which flows in the soil in the form of vertical nature, not horizontal nature. The horizontal nature of water is called by the name again subsurface runoff. When the water flows in a vertical manner, that is called by the name infiltration. That infiltrated water may be distributed in different ways. Firstly, it supplies moisture to the vegetation, and after utilizing it for their sustenance of their life, definitely the vegetation, which means plants and trees, send this moisture back into the atmosphere through the leaves by a process known as transpiration. Secondly, infiltrated water may percolate deep and become groundwater, supply to surface streams known as the groundwater runoff, or it may become groundwater supply to oceans. The total stream flow, which is the sum of the surface runoff and the groundwater runoff, ultimately joins the oceans. Surface runoff is the flow of water which occurs on the ground surface when excess rainwater, storm water occurs. Which means the runoff means, the surface runoff means when it occurs when the land receives excess precipitation more than it receives. When excess precipitation takes place, a portion of the water gets entered into the soil, rest of the water flows on the surface of the soil itself, which is called by the name surface runoff. The water which gets entered into the soil, definitely that takes place vertical movement, which is called by the name infiltration. Thus, a portion of surface runoff and a portion of groundwater flow back to oceans, seas, ponds, lakes, reservoirs, etc. Again, evaporation starts from the surfaces of ponds, lakes, reservoirs, oceans. Thus, the hydrologic cycle has no beginning, no end, as the water in nature is continuously kept in cyclic motion. Finally, it is the endless circulation of water between hydrosphere, atmosphere and lithosphere. When water responds to the sun energy, it takes place evaporation and transpiration. Here condensation takes place when the water responds to the earth's gravity that has to move towards the ground surface through the process of precipitation. Precipitation means various kinds of precipitation like drizzling, rain, snow, hail, sleet, dew, etc. Such a way, the hydrologic cycle has no beginning or no end. Here, water is kept being cyclic motion. Evaporation and transpiration, these two combinedly called by the name evapotranspiration. That's all. Evaporation takes place and transpiration takes place. Again, here condensation takes place. The condensed water molecules tends towards the ground surface in the form of precipitation. This is the hydrologic cycle.